The 8 children of the MacNeill family had a traumatic experience that day that they would never forget. Michele and Martin MacNeill's 29-year marriage had ended, leaving behind a mystery that remained unsolved for years, until brave prosecutors reopened the investigation years later. The mystery left behind by Michele, a woman full of life despite her age, was finally solved. Today, as we examine this mystery and its details, you can get involved in this investigation by subscribing to our channel. Her family was everything to Michele. That's how her daughter Alexis Somers describes it. According to her, her father Martin and Michele met at an event for young singles. The meeting turned into love and the two married when she was 21. Michelle's marriage was going well. So much so that she had 4 children in the first years of her marriage. However, it was not limited to this. To multiply their happiness, the couple adopted 4 more children, 3 of them Ukrainian. They were now a large family. Her daughter Alexis Somers, describing her mother, clearly explained the motivation behind this woman having such a large family.
All she cared about was her family. I mean, her family was her life.
Michele Macneill was 50 years old when she died. One morning she spoke to her daughter Alexis Somers, a medical student. Everything was normal. Mother Michele sounded healthy and happy. After a while, Alexis received a strange message from her father. Her father was telling Alexis to call her mom. Surprised by this message, Alexis immediately called her father. The father, Martin MacNeill, hung up the phone saying only the following.
Your mom. She's in the bathtub. She's not breathing. I called an ambulance.
Alexis Somers suspected something from the first moment, but she couldn't prove it, and she was hurting. The unfortunate woman set out to reach her mother as soon as possible. When she arrived home, all legal procedures were completed. Mother Michele was on her last journey. The police had made their inquiries, examined the evidence, and reached a conclusion. This conclusion was that Michele had died of natural causes. The case of Michelle's suspicious death was closed within 2 months. But Alexis still wasn't sure. Alexis clearly suspected her father, but she never had the opportunity to prove it. Because the mother Michele, according to Alexis, was a woman full of life despite her age. Martin MacNeill, the father, had started to change in his 50s. Martin was no longer the old Martin. He was doing behaviors he had never done before and taking care of himself more than he had ever taken care of himself before. Rachel MacNeill described her father's behavior as follows.
He started acting very strange. He became very obsessed with weight loss and his appearance. He was going to tanning salons.
Shortly before Michelle's death, Martin had changed a lot, as Rachel said. He was constantly trying to look younger than his age. This also caught Michelle's attention. Michele suspected that her husband was having an affair. Her husband used Michelle's allegation as an opportunity to use her against her. He told Michele that she was no longer as beautiful as she used to be and that she needed to be well-groomed. However, Michele was a former beauty pageant winner. Those who knew her insisted that Michele was still quite beautiful for her age. This is where Alexis' first suspicions about her father began. One day Martin suddenly announced that his wife Michele was going to have a facelift. This was very remarkable for Alexis, because her mother had never mentioned anything like this before. Alexis was building a suspicion step by step, but she couldn't tell anyone about it. Michele, on the other hand, seemed to sense something. He said to his daughter,
If anything happens to me, make sure it's not your father.
In fact, for Alexis, these words only made her suspicions grow. Alexis was a medical student. She was taking care of her mother. But at the same time, it was time to leave her. She was afraid, because even when Alexis was at home, her father had over-medicated her mother. She vomited from the effects of these drugs. and Martin, the father, with extraordinary composure.
Oh, she threw up, and then I gave her more medicine.
Event day. A week after the surgery, while Michele was resting at home, Father Martin went to pick up their daughter Ada from school. When they got to the front door, Martin told his daughter Ada, "Go check on your mom." Ada told this to her older sister Alexis. Ada ran home in fear and panic. Her mother Michele was lying lifeless in the bathtub. Ada kept calling, "Mom, Mommy," but there was no movement from Michele. Martin, the father, was making another suspicious gesture at the time. One of the first people to become aware of the incident was 911 operator Heidi Johnson. Heidi Johnson said that in a phone conversation with Martin, Martin was very calm.
This is 911. Can I help you? I need help. Okay, sir, they're on their way. Is your wife breathing?
She is not. I am a physician. I got CPR in progress.
You're doing CPR. Do you know?
Oh, no,
Sir, how old is your wife?
my wife is 50 years old. She just had surgery here a couple of days or a week ago.
What kind of surgery did she have?
She had a facelift.
She had a facelift?
Yes,
Okay, do you know how to do CPR?
I'm doing it.
Okay, do not take...
The father Martin thought he could get rid of all the accusations, but Alexis was not willing to let this case go, because she had been living with this suspicion for many years. There was no sign that he was wrong in his suspicions. Her father was no longer her father. Alexis first wanted to see how much medication her mother was on. She was also a medical student. She knew exactly which pills to take and in what dosage. But her father had disposed of the remaining pills by flushing them down the toilet. No one but Martin knew how many pills Michele had taken. Martin's explanation made Alexis even more suspicious. In fact, it removed all doubts and made her come to a definite conclusion. Martin said that seeing the pills upset Michele, so she poured them down the toilet. The case was closed, but Alexis didn't want to let it go. Her mother had hacked into her father's phone a week before Michele's death, and they had found her. Gypsy Jillian Willis. Willis spoke to the press after the events unfolded and said the following about Martin.
We met online. He sent me a message. He asked me what I knew about quantum physics. There was instant chemistry. He was tall, handsome, very well spoken.
After their mother's death, Rachel and Alexis offered to take care of their younger siblings. But the gypsy showed up once again. The father, Martin, had said bluntly, drawing Alexis' attention to him.
Oh, I found the perfect nanny. Oh, I think Jillian.
Jillian had clearly entered the life of the MacNeill family. She had moved into the MacNeill home a few weeks after Michele's death. Alexis and Rachel's protests didn't stop Martin and Jillian. Moreover, the two girls were kicked out of the house by their father. Alexis was trying all means to solve her mother's case. One day the closed doors were opened and investigators Doug Whitney and Jeff Robinson from the Utah District Attorney's Office were assigned to investigate the case. They had now drawn the first stone to uncover the whole truth about Martin. Whitney, one of the investigators, actually signaled what he was going to do when he said, "The first stone of this pyramid was Martin's education." When investigators looked into Martin's education, they were shocked. Both transcripts Martin, a doctor from Utah, had prepared to enter medical school were forged. He had also committed many crimes throughout his life, including fraud, and had spent 180 days in jail after his marriage. Alexis and Rachel were trying to find out the truth about their father, while their father Martin was trying to give his other daughters up for adoption. Martin had also stolen the identity of his stepdaughter Giselle so that he could put the house belonging to his wife Michele in Jillian's name. After their investigation, investigators found enough evidence to bring Martin before a judge. In July 2012, After serving 3 years in prison for fraud, Martin MacNeill was released and returned home to live with his wife Michele. But his freedom was short-lived. Prosecutor Chad Grunander was preparing to arrest him again. 2 months later, Martin faced murder charges in his wife's death and was sent to a Utah prison. On October 17, 2013, the trial for Michele Macneill's murder finally began. Dr. Scott Thompson, the plastic surgeon who performed Michele's facelift, said he prescribed the drugs Martin requested, but did not expect his wife to take them all at once. Martin's daughters described how their relationship with their father deteriorated and how they blamed him for their mother's death. Somers said her mother told her, "If anything happens to me, make sure it's not your father." Martin's former lover, Gypsy Willis, also testified in court. Grunander claimed that Martin killed Michele to marry Gypsy. Gypsy admitted that Martin had written down the date of Michele's death as the date of their marriage. Letters written by Martin while in prison were also read to the jury. After a 22-day trial, the jury found Martin MacNeill guilty of murder and obstruction of justice. In 2013, Martin was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. However, on April 9, 2017, he was found dead in Utah State Prison, having committed suicide. Authorities confirmed that she had committed suicide. Michele's children have rebuilt their lives to honor their mother's memory. Somers took her mother's maiden name, became a doctor, and adopted her sisters. The other sisters also made successful strides in their own lives. The family continues to honor Michele's memory, leaving behind Martin's dark legacy.
I wanted to graduate under my mother's maiden name. I don't want to be Dr. MacNeill, Somers said. I don't want to have any part of my father.